All right, let's now in fact look at the latest news that is coming in from Beijing, where US President Donald Trump is in China for a high-stakes two-day summit with Chinese President Xi, and this is their first face-to-face meeting in China since 2017. Trump has already arrived on Wednesday and on Thursday received a grand welcome ceremony at the Great Hall of the People, including a handshake with Xi, national anthems and troop review, with both leaders projecting warmth and optimism for stronger bilateral ties amid global tensions. And now the agenda centers on trade, extending the 2025 truce, boosting US agriculture, energy, aircraft exports, rare earths access and possible Board of Trade mechanisms. The Iran conflict, Trump wants to press China to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz and also influence Tehran. And then there is a talk about Taiwan and US arms sale to that, and Beijing's red lines on independence. Now, accompanied by CEOs like Elon Musk, Tim Cook and Jensen Huang, Trump seeks quick economic wins while Xi prioritizes stability and concessions. No major breakthroughs have been announced yet as talks continue with a Temple of Heaven visit and a state banquet. Now, expectations lean towards incremental deals rather than sweeping agreements in a competitive but managed relationship. With that, let's in fact take a look at some of the top moments from the meeting, because this will help us understand what were the highlights of this meeting that comes after 9 long years. And US President Donald Trump in fact is in Beijing after 2017. So let's take a look at those visuals, those iconic moments that have come to the fore. This is 13th May, Beijing, China, yesterday when Donald Trump arrived over there. US President Donald Trump touches down in Beijing, China after 9 long years, since 2017, the first time that US President Donald Trump actually is arriving in China. So a big historic milestone in itself that he has touched upon the Chinese land. Now, obviously, red carpet welcome for the US president on arrival. The Chinese are also treating this as a very important visit. Remember, when US President Donald Trump landed there, a red carpet, massive red carpet was rolled out for him. And remember that US President Donald Trump is not coming alone. His delegation includes top CEOs from 30 companies across the United States. Now, this is Chinese President Xi Jinping. You can look at that iconic handshake and he greets US President Donald Trump. This is the iconic photo over here. Presidents of two of the most powerful countries shaking their hands. Now, let's look at another iconic photo where President Trump meets and greets Chinese dignitaries also. So they were all standing in line for that grand welcome, and US President Donald Trump actually greets the various Chinese dignitaries as well. Let's in fact also look at another visual that is coming to the fore. And let's look at how US President Donald Trump actually received the Guard of Honor. So this is what we are getting for you. Then a key bilateral trade was also, key bilateral meeting also took place right now during this. So those visuals are also there on your screens, and these are in fact some of the developments that have in fact taken place. So these were iconic moments that we got for you right now. Let's go across to Mr. Sanjeev Srivastav, foreign affairs expert, who's joining us on this broadcast as well for more on this. Mr. Srivastav, welcome. Thank you for taking out your time and for speaking to NewsX. Let's start off this discussion about the iconic moments that have in fact taken place over here. When US President Donald Trump actually, touched down in Beijing, and then the iconic handshake that actually happened, and obviously that long table that was set up inside the Great Hall of the People in Beijing.
Yes, I think it's a historical moment, iconic moment, certainly. And this visit of President Donald Trump to China is happening after a gap of 9 years. So I think it's a special visit by US President to China. And though he has been interacting with the Chinese leadership on several other forums, but visit-wise, this is happening after a long gap. So I think it is certainly having a special significance for President Trump too, and that's what he has mentioned this morning when he opened up his remarks, and he has been given a grand welcome. There's no doubt on that. But having said that, there are certain ground realities which must not be ignored. That though this relationship is a major power relationship, but the nature and the characteristics of two nations, China and the United States of America, is quite different. And on one hand, when the United States of America is a democracy, China is an authoritarian country, and their model of governance, their system of governance is quite different from each other. And they have a great a sense of a competition, contestation, and rather in some areas on the issue of Taiwan and several other areas in the Indo-Pacific region, there could be moments of rivalry which might occur in future, and that sense of rivalry has been there between the U.S. and China on several of those issues in the Indo-Pacific region and others in the past too. So I think this ground reality must not be ignored while analyzing US-China relationship, that this relationship has every aspect: competition, contestation, rivalry, as well as cooperation. But coming to this current visit by the US president, I think whereas several issues have come under discussion, and obviously those issues are trade, tariff, Taiwan, technology, as well as the issue of Iran. I think all those issues have been discussed, and President Trump has gone with a very strong team of their business leaders and several other top officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and others. And it's a very strong delegation United States of American president is representing with in China, and so has that been responded by the Chinese side too. And both the delegations are having a very comprehensive review of the entire relationship what the U.S. and China has been having. And when President Xi Jinping was giving his remarks, he talked. He said that U.S. should treat China as partner, not a rival. And obviously, that's a constructive remark. And similar kind of sentiments have been shown by the U.S. side too, that they will like to seek more cooperation and understanding with China. So that said, I think this understanding, this kind of a ground reality must never be ignored. That this relationship will have an element of competition, contestation, and there are several issues where both the nations will have a great rivalry too. So I think this is a very complex relationship, and this is a fact. But having said that, let me come to the issue of Iran. I think that is one issue which the United States of America is currently facing, and United States of America is looking for greater cooperation from China, so that China uses its influence in the Iranian Islamic regime for to bring them to a negotiating table, and in particular for the normalization of the state of Hormuz. Certainly, United States of America will seek more cooperation from Chinese side, which I believe, in my assessment, China would also be willing to give its cooperation to United States of America, because China is also very heavily dependent on the state of Hormuz for its energy imports. And I think Chinese economy is also suffering because of this disruption in the state of Hormuz, and so are the other economies. So I think on Iranian issue, there could be a greater cooperation and a more constructive outcome. I expect as far as the China putting more pressure on the Iranian Islamic regime is concerned. I think there might be some very constructive outcome on those issues. So I think overall, if you look at this visit, I think all the major issues will be discussed. And in particular, if I talk about the issues of technology, semiconductors, rare earth materials, I think on those issues, both the countries would like to seek a win-win, situation, so that both are benefited and both, could cooperate with each other for their own growth and prosperity.
Valuable perspective on this issue. With that, we are moving forward